Welcome to Getting to Know You. This is part two. The first part of that we put on, number one, in the effort for you to get to know the candidates. I guess we're calling them nominees for the Resident Association Executive Committee meeting, focused on the president and the vice president, and a report from the nominating committee about how they did their work. Now, for part two, you are meeting the nominee for secretary, that is for a second term in her case, and the treasurer, as well as two people who have been nominated to serve on the executive committee. So we hope you enjoy this way of getting to know the candidates, to hear them and in effect meet them in person on our screen. Don't forget that the Resident Association meeting coming up in May will be a time when official action will be taken. But we hope you enjoyed meeting the nominees in this way. Hello, Carol Ober. It's nice to have you back.
Thank you.
You're here because you were nominated for a second term as secretary. So you've done 2 years.
Yes.
And now you have 2 more years ahead of you. And is that right?
That is.
It is, okay.
Yes.
Well, first of all, there are many people here who may not have even known you were secretary. And I sort of think it might be nice to think back on the 2 years that you were doing that job. I guess we really owe you a debt of gratitude so that we all know what was going on. You write good minutes and they get posted on the board, right?
Well, that's the idea, that we're trying to make sure everybody knows what's going on and around here. And so I post the minutes on the bulletin board for everybody to read. And I've learned to make them bigger so people can read them. And I also put it on Touchtown so that they can find it on Touchtown and read it there. So I've tried to keep everything sort of out there where people
So
can be
when you
informed.
say the minutes, you're talking about the executive committee meeting so that people can know what was discussed in the smaller group meeting, as well as when I guess we meet every other month as a resident association.
Well, part of my job is also those minutes, and then also any committees that they give me their minutes, I'll post those, make sure they're available.
Now, in the meantime, when you're not doing minutes, you've been involved here at Stonebridge in a number of activities and initiating, I think of as one that's very important. You want to say a little something about that?
Well, I decided when I came here that I was going to get involved, that I wasn't going to sit back and so I'm in the greenhouse. I'm co-chair of the greenhouse, and I'm on
And
the
it really looks good.
Well, thank you. And then it's fun. You know, it's just we don't know what we're doing, but we're having fun doing it. And then I, with Tony Glockler and Bev Glockler's help, we decided to have a Trailblazers group, and we go out to the different parks and have a nice
That's the Friday,
walk.
the early Friday morning
walk.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful. I've lived here in the Princeton area for 40 years, and half of these parks I'd never been to. And it's nice to go out and walk and see different areas. And so that part's been great. And I'll get whatever's around. I love to get busy, and I play bocce and all kinds of things.
Did you learn to play bocce?
Oh,
As
yeah,
I did?
yes. Not very well, but
Well done.
enthusiastically.
Yeah, I never thought I'd be rolling that
Oh,
ball
well.
at my age, but it's fun.
It is fun.
I wanted you to touch on one thing is looking ahead too, is that the activities that you and I guess Doreen Malouf have undertaken have also produced some funds, and they basically have gone through the Resident Association, and that's an important contribution too. Can you just explain a little bit about how that works?
Okay, we have just created a new funding policy so that we have a policy in hand I mean the executive committee.
Yeah.
And the idea is that the executive committee will decide if it's going to benefit the community, so that we're a little bit more careful of how we're using the funds and trying to use it in a way that benefits the most people here.
Right. Here in our own association, but then you've also been making some contributions in our own community
Yes,
too.
yes, the last one we gave to the food pantry for Spring Point's affordable housing, which was really needed and appreciated.
Yeah, so you are looking forward, I guess, to another 2 years of that kind of activity.
Yes.
And maybe inventing something new.
Well, not me, but the committee, sure.
Yeah, well, that's really great. Thank you for what you've done.
Thank you.
And I think it's an honor that the people want you to continue. And it sounds like you want to do it too, and that's
Sure.
good for us. So
Thank you.
thank you so much, Carol. I'm pleased to be talking with Ken Kenizer, and I'm going to say right up front, Ken, that you've been nominated to be treasurer. And I happen to know that you do a terrific job being treasurer of the country store. But you've had some other experiences in your life that you're bringing to this job. Can you tell us a little bit what you did before Stonebridge?
Well, I grew up living over a family business. So I watched my father all my life as a kid doing the same type of thing, managing cash and doing that. When I was in high school, I got drafted to be the head of Alpha Zeta fraternity, which also had financial problems. So I've been working with those kinds of issues literally all my life. Medical institutions, in trouble financially usually, and that's what I did for most of my working career.
And were you a volunteer for any other organization that you weren't being paid for?
A drafted volunteer maybe, because when I worked at a hospital or a medical center, I was also drafted as one of the volunteers and working with their foundations and fundraising.
Right.
So I can say, while I participated in raising millions of dollars, I didn't have the millions to give myself.
Right. No, I wasn't asking that question.
I still don't.
You were giving your expertise,
Yes.
as you have
Helping
to the country
manage
store.
the process.
Yeah. And I guess I think what's wonderful that we've gotten to know is that you do it with good cheer.
Oh, well, Charlie Taggart drafted me to do the store, and I'm waiting for the next opportunity to draft somebody to replace me in a year or so. And that same process is what got me involved in running for this office.
And are you a person that's participated in other things in Stonebridge here? Are you a bocce player?
No, I'm not a bocce player, but I still participate in activities at the Montgomery Senior Center.
Oh,
I'm one of the members of the Montgomery Senior Ukulele Band.
well, I think a lot of people, maybe seeing you in person all by yourself, are saying, oh, that's the person that was in the ukulele band when they
And I got
performed.
drafted into that rather than volunteering, but drafted volunteers usually do as good a job as anybody else.
Well, thank you for bringing the group here. I know that people found that was really a lot of fun.
It was fun.
Yeah. So do you have any other ideas of things that you would like to bring to the committee, or are you waiting for people to hand over the books to you and then you'll see what you're going to do?
Well, I'll do that. I've watched Tony, and he's the equivalent of Charlie Taggart to me in terms of what's next with what's going on organizationally. But one of the things that I noticed in moving here, and we moved here about 3 months before the pandemic. During the pandemic, it's been very lonesome because of all of the activities that were canceled.
Right.
There's been no place to congregate, which is why I'm active in promoting a resident bar or lounge where people can go visit, congregate over little things or big things, whatever turns you on.
Right.
And so I'm still promoting the concept of having a resident bar or lounge.
Well, I guess that's the way things get started.
I hope so. Let's see where it
You
goes.
promote something and then you have to face, how are we gonna pay for it?
Yes.
And how do you organize it? You're up for that.
More drafted volunteers.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being willing to serve and take on another treasurer's job here, and we'll hope to see you in May.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for putting up with me, and take it one step at a time.
Okay, well, thanks a lot.
All right.
And I want to say, you live on the east side, right?
Yes.
I think we sort of consider the two sides neighborhoods, or the cottages sort of neighborhoods, and so it's nice to have that balance.
Well,
And that
I was
think-
told when I first came here that the east side was the lesser side.
Oh,
Of course,
why?
I was told that by somebody who lives in
Lives
the
on the
penthouse on the west side.
Okay,
Right.
all right. There's no such thing as lesser here
No.
at Stonebridge.
And
so-
Dot Moore doesn't hesitate to share her opinion.
Well, there's one person you're listening to. Now we can see if you can add to the list. How's that?
You don't dare not listen.
Well, thanks a lot for being willing to be nominated and to take on a task here at the Residents Association. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. I'm very pleased to be sitting here with Herb Kaufman. He is one of two who might be a member of the executive committee of the Residents Association. He's been nominated. You've read his bio. You maybe saw him introduced. This is a chance to hear him tell us a little bit about what he's done and what he might like to do on the executive committee. So Herb, you are relatively new here, right?
I am.
And we noticed that the nominating committee made a very balanced nomination in terms of where people are here at Stonebridge. So you're on the West Wing neighborhood.
I'm on the West Wing neighborhood, and to be exact, my wife and I, unfortunately, is no longer with us, arrived in August 2019.
Okay. So you've had just enough time to figure out that this might be a good thing to be doing.
Well, I think it's a wonderful way to learn about Stonebridge and possibly even make a contribution to
Good.
it.
Well, tell us a little bit about what you're bringing with you in the realm of experience that you think might be useful in this new challenge.
Well, I've never done anything like this, exactly. I am a retired physician. I practiced for 34 years, and of course there were years of preparation and a couple of years in the military before that. As I told Ingrid, I've done a lot of listening, and I like to quote Yogi Berra, who probably didn't say, you can see a lot just by observing. So, or maybe he said you can observe a lot just by seeing. So I think I've seen a lot about people. I also, after I retired, which was in 2020, in 2000, I began to do volunteer work for an organization that did affordable housing in northern Westchester County, where I had lived for over 50 years. And eventually I became on the board, and I was chairman of the admissions committee for some time. So I had plenty of experience.
That's very relevant to Stonebridge because of Spring Point's big commitment to affordable housing. I think it's a good thing to understand.
As a matter of fact, when I looked up Spring Point, I found the half dozen places similar to Stonebridge that Spring Point does. But when I looked in the affordable housing, I saw how immense the investment is in that, and how important that is. I should say, by the way, the organization that I work for is called A-Home Housing, that all capitals with a line between the A and the H, which stands for apropos housing opportunities and management or something like that. And it started about 30 years ago, I guess 35 years ago. basically for local people in northern Westchester who had lived there, and for some reason or other couldn't live there any longer. And most of what it does is what's called shared living in houses that it has acquired one way or another. I won't go into the details of that because it's complicated. Some as few as 3 and one as many as 14 people, mostly in the 4 to 6 number of people.
Interesting, yeah, so it's not big buildings.
No, it's not big buildings and it's not group homes. These are people capable of independent living who share some of the features of the homes in
Well,
which
and
they live.
that's something we'd like to explore a little bit more about how Spring Point does it. We learn from it. Now, as you serve on the executive committee, you've already had some experience here in getting to know Stonebridge. I recall that you are on a new task force on, I don't know if you get samples of food in the dining room, but.
No, we don't. It's called the Dining Room Task Force. I believe it was, if not started by John Schmidt, he is the chairman. There are, I think, 6 of us all together, and we meet with Ed Chapman about every 6 weeks, who I have to say is a remarkable man and knows every step of what happens, from how to buy to how to cook to who should be doing what. So I've gotten some understanding of a very important part of Stonebridge.
A lot of people care about that. So that would be a good thing to continue reporting to the executive committee, I guess. But, and you've joined the building committee, and we all know that that's important too.
That is very important, and also that's a good way to get some understanding of what's going on.
Right.
Both in management and in the general as well as the detailed matters that happen here.
Well, we look forward to you assuming a position on the executive committee. We still, as an association, all of us here at Stonebridge, will have a meeting in May when we have to decide if we really want you to join the committee.
Well, I'll be willing to accept whatever the decision is.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for talking with us.
Thank you, Ingrid.
I'm very pleased to be sitting with Paul Matthews. And Paul, I know that you live on the east side.
Right.
And one of the things about the executive committee is we have a perfect balance of people living in the east side neighborhood and in the west side neighborhood. And this will be a new place for you to be active. I want to thank you for being one of the clerks in the country store. But before we get into what you might be thinking about the executive committee, tell us a little bit about your experience that you call on when you're a volunteer, or that helps you be of service this way. What do you think you bring to this role?
Well, I've served in this capacity at other locations I've lived, okay?
Right.
And senior residents. And I think that experience will help me make the change here and help me to adjust to the new job and be able to be ready to go as soon as I
You know
forward.
about listening.
Yeah.
And translating that into some kind of action, and I guess that's really what we do with the resident association.
Right.
And so you've had that experience in other places.
Yes.
Okay. Well, when did you come here?
In January of 2020.
So you're relatively
2022. No, 20, yes.
new. And you have a sense of what it's like to be new, which I think is a good part of being engaged.
Yes, my wife and I, we were here 2 months before the pandemic hit, so we had a little opportunity.
Just a little bit.
It's like starting all over again when that's over.
Right. But you probably, looking back on the pandemic, realized how important it was for residents to be helpful to each other in
Yes.
whatever way they could be.
Yes,
And even though that was hard, it was a sense that we're all in this together.
yes,
Uh,
yes.
So as you're looking ahead, and you've said, yes, you would like to be on the executive committee, do you have some ideas of things that you would like to support or
Well,
do?
I'd really like to, with our residents, try to enhance their pleasures
Mhm.
and of staying here
Mhm.
and make it as enjoyable as possible for them.
Mhm.
And I think that's the thing that I would really like to work towards.
Right. Have you seen something that worked here that you thought was a good thing in terms of that goal of their pleasure and enjoying each other?
Well, one of the things I guess is Bogle, okay?
Mhm.
Where someone came in and thought that our residents here might enjoy that.
Mhm.
And they set it up, and so that would be an example of something that I might see
Mhm.
that
There'd be
Yeah.
other ways of,
of doing that
Yeah.
that they haven't thought about yet,
right.
okay?
And I think that was a good example of residents making a good case for it. You can't
Yes.
just ask for it.
That's right. That's
So
right.
do you see yourself as a person being able to organize things?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess another area where we've seen that it's good to have engagement with residents is things that we take for granted, like the food service or transportation.
Yeah.
That we need to support that as residents.
Well, I kind of look at our residents as our customers,
Mhm,
okay?
That's a good
On
way
the-
of
On the
looking at it,
executive
yeah.
committee, and so we're here to help them,
Mhm,
okay?
mhm.
And make them, as I say, life as enjoyable as we can for them.
Right, respect what they would like to have
Right,
and figure that out then
Yeah.
how we can do it.
Yeah.
Well, that would be good.
particularly how we can help them in their everyday life.
That's great. Well, I'm glad that you've had that experience in the past, and
Yes.
I think we'll all be looking forward to being good clients or customers, as you say, and
Yes.
interact with the executive committee.
Well, I would like the power to be to give me this opportunity.
Oh, good.
And I look forward to it.
That's great. Thank you so much for being willing to be nominated, and come May, we'll see
Okay.
if everybody agrees.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being here.
Okay.